What's up, guys? It's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you some new mastering secrets. I've learned a lot about mastering since the last time I made a video on this, and today I'm going to be showing you everything I learned and how to really get a powerful but still very clean and focused master. Now, to go along this video, I just dropped my best Ableton mastering rack ever. The link is right at the top of the description on my website. I'll just give you a quick demo. So I have this track in front of me. This is without the mastering rack. And then with that. So you can hear this could take any track and make it super fat and powerful and full. So if you've been struggling with mastering your tracks, or you just want the best Ableton mastering rack ever that will take your tracks and really take them to the next level and make them very punchy and full and fat, the link is at the top of the description. This works for all genres, and you can get a very diverse range of masters with this, you know? You can really make your tracks hit super, super hard. You can make it a little bit smoother with some texture. You can do a lot with this. You can see it's got all of these knobs that allow you to really control your master. Plus, it's even got some little secrets in here. Like, it's got this texture knob, which I'll just show you what that does. You know, for this kind of techno, maybe you wouldn't use that as much, but that can really give you that, like, nice little bit of crunch that you want with this type of stuff. And there's also this transition knob, which you can use on your master to create transitions in your track. And I'll show you how that works really quick. So you can literally just create like effects using this. So again, this is the best Ableton mastering rack ever that I've seen on the internet. If you want it, it's literally just $5. Grab it at the top of the description. This really helps support me. I don't make a whole lot off of YouTube, but with these racks and stuff like this, I'm able to keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Link is at the top of the description. Don't miss out. This really is the best Ableton mastering rack I've ever seen. And let's dive into the video. So, I'm going to be showing you some stuff. Pretty much like what's happening in this rack is like a much deeper and more full, I should say, kind of dive into what I'm going to be showing you today. But I'm going to be showing you the basic things of mastering. So, the first thing about mastering is you need your track to not be clipping, right? Now this one actually hits pretty hard. This is a pre-master for my track My Eyes, released on my label Reflection a few months ago. You guys probably remember that. And you can see, like, this isn't even that quiet. A lot of people say, you know, you need to have it like -3 to -6. And that is important, but also one thing I've noticed is that when you do that, and then you actually try to master the track, like, okay, let's say you just read a guide on mastering on the internet, and they're like, yo, like, put your track between -3 and -6. And then you do that, right? And then you're pre-master, and then you go to master it. What's gonna happen is, like, it's not really gonna hit as hard as the other tracks. I think that advice, on a scientific level, yes. It does. You're right. Like, that gives you a lot of headroom. It's gonna make it very clean, all of that. But from what I have seen, every time I try to do that and then master my track and then compare it to reference tracks and see if it's holding up, it's always like my track just isn't quite there. And you could go back all day and tweak your sounds and all that kind of stuff, but then all of a sudden you turn it up a little bit and have it so it's not clipping, but maybe it's a little bit louder than -3 like this. And then you master that, that is going to be able to get as fat as those tracks. And I really think, like, most of the tracks that you guys are hearing, they're not doing that. Like, when you listen to, like, you know, a track from, say, like, Umek, for example, like, you know, his tracks really, really hit. And I just don't know if you can get that kind of power, even with a very heavy, powerful master. I just don't know if you can get that just following the, like, music production forum advice of -3 to -6. So you really need to open your mind about that. And I know there's going to be people in the comments already hating on this. I don't really care. This is what I have learned in my experience actually doing it. Again, I think there's a big difference between like a music production forum, what they're going to say on there, and then what's actually being done in the field, right? And I don't really care about doing it the way that a bunch of people on the internet say to do it if it sounds better. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is always going to matter more than just like trying to live up to that, like, what people are going to tell you in a forum or on a blog or something like that. And I'm not hating on that. I think that is really good advice. And I also think, like, when you're coming from just starting out and you're making a lot of messy stuff, yeah, that's probably really good advice to get you going to kind of get it cleaner. But at a certain point, when you're really trying to get that level of today's professional music, where we are in a post-loudness wars era, like, the -3 to -6 thing doesn't always do it. And you could probably make it a little bit quieter than this one is, but I mean, it still sounds good. And if it sounds good, it is good. So that's the first thing. It's really like, because everybody goes, oh, like, why, I put mastering on my track and it still doesn't sound good. Well, it's because the thing going into the mastering has to be good too. It's not just like, doing all this stuff and having something that's all right, and then the mastering is going to save it. You have to make something very good, and then the mastering will take that to the next level. And that's also including how loud it is. So that's the first thing, is your pre-master. And the next thing mastering that I would do would actually be just to get an EQ here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a cut right at 30 hertz. And then we're going to make a cut right at 20 kilohertz, which to do that, you just type in 20,000 there, right? Because that's what kilohertz means. It's 20,000 hertz. So what are we doing here? We're cutting out. So as you guys know, like, the range of human hearing is pretty much from about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? 20 kilohertz. We can't really hear it much higher than that. And actually, chances are, if you're at a certain age, like, I think it's past the age of, like, 21 or 22 or something like that, you start to lose. So even, like, you may not even be hearing fully up to 20 kilohertz. You might be hearing, like, 17 or something like that. The thing is, we can't hear that, and we also can't hear this low end below, like, 20 hertz. Really lower than, like, 30 is where I like to put it. The problem is, though, is those frequencies still will get in the way of your master, and you're going to have, like, a problem with not having enough headroom, because essentially you have these frequencies going into your different mastering things that you're not even hearing, but that information is being communicated into the compressor and the limiter and that kind of stuff, and it's going to make it a lot messier at the end. So if you just cut those, again, you're not even hearing the things that you're cutting, but it's going to make your track a lot cleaner. And when we get to the end, if you turn this off and back on again, you'll see what I mean. So that's the first thing. Like, you just want to do that right off the bat. And I do this in the track too, honestly. So then the next thing here, and this is not entirely necessary, but it can make a big difference, it's a bit of saturation. Now, one thing that I've learned with the saturation that I've never shown you guys before is you really want to do, like, some parallel processing with this. And that's where the dry wet knob comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the saturator not very high at all, right? Keep it on this analog clip setting. You don't need it to be too strong. Just put it on, like, 3. Like, not that much. And then we're going to put the output on -1.5. I usually do half of, like, whatever the drive is at to kind of even it out. Because if you just leave the output up, your master's going to get a little bit too loud. But yeah, so here's without this. And with it. See, it's very subtle, but it just pulls it up a little bit. It makes everything a little bit more glued together and more even. And that is, to simply put it, it's because saturation adds harmonics over top of your sound. So essentially what's happening is, without this, you're hearing all these sounds that are, like, in different harmonic ranges, and now all of a sudden the saturator adding harmonics to that is kind of bringing those closer together because there's more harmonics. So like I was saying, though, you want to do a bit of parallel processing with this, because if you just leave it like this, it can really start to crunch up your bass. So what you're going to do is put the dry wet at 0 and just turn it up until it sounds good. Alright, there we go. So now it's at a point where, and we can even turn that output back up since we're blending it. You can hear the saturation in there, but you're still hearing the original sound. And that's what you want. This is like a layer rather than, just saturating the whole entire thing. Then we're going to get a bit of compression. And this is going to be kind of similar, right? Just like a very light thing but it's going to add a lot. So we're going to turn the threshold down a little. We turned off makeup gain. You don't want that for mastering. And what this is going to do is it's going to balance the track a little. Now we need to turn up the attack as well so it doesn't mess up the transients of any of the sounds in the mix. And that's a big secret for mastering, is when use the compressor but turn the attack up, because now this is going to get out of the way of all the transients. So your kick isn't going to get flattened. You know, you're still going to have punchy drums and sounds, but you're still going to get the compression on the body of the sounds where you want it. And again, you really don't want that much. And we can even turn this down a little bit. So here's without this. Again, very subtle, but you can hear that's like just balancing the mix out. Everything has a little bit more even place. And everything we're doing so far is really subtle, right? But like every time I do it, it's probably like, oh, this doesn't even sound like that much. Well, check out what happens if we turn everything off and then turn it back on. So here's nothing, and then I'm just going to turn everything on one by one. See, all these little tiny subtle things are adding up. And then now when you get to this point, you can really hear it if you turn them off. And I think that's really when you're making your best music too, is when the little tiny things make a huge difference. So then the last thing here is we're going to get a limiter. And we don't need any limiting. Obviously, you can see we're not clipping. And that's the key to this. You can't be clipping going into the limiter. The limiter is not to fix clipping. What the limiter is doing, though, is see how we're pretty loud, right? We're just about at 0 dB. But it's still not really, like, as loud as, like, what you guys hear, right? Like, when you listen to all the popular tracks, especially this style of techno. Like, even though it's hitting 0 where it should be, it's still not quite as loud. So that's where the limiter can come in. It gives you a way to basically just boost everything that isn't quite hitting 0 dB into that, and without messing it up, right, just kind of push it further than 0 while still keeping it there. And that is essentially how you're getting this big, massive, modern sound of all these tracks, especially in techno. So, yeah, and this is one of those things that is done a lot in mastering, but I think really, like, this is a huge part of it, because, like, without this, your track just isn't going to be as, you know, it's not up there just yet. But then if we start turning this up, see, there we go. That's the sound. Now, this is also one of those things that I think if you're reading, like, the music production forum, they're going to go, yeah, turn it up, like, +3 to +6 or something like that. That's another case where I think if you just do that very, like, conservative, like, you know, not trying to mess anything up way of doing it, your tracks, maybe they'll be a little bit, like, clean or whatever, but it's really not going to hit. And then you're going to send your track to somebody with a label, and they're going to go, oh, man, you got to keep working on your tracks. You know, they're not loud enough. They're not hitting hard enough. And you probably had a track that was good enough. It's just that you're following this, like, advice that, like, isn't really practical. Like, those forums and stuff like that are really good, but a lot of that information I really feel is more about, like, it's like a perfect world when you're sitting behind your, like, keyboard typing about it, but it's not really, like, practical. This is practical. This is what they're doing to make their tracks loud, actually in professional tracks. You know, nothing like, yeah. I think you get that. Now, the other thing here is you can do this too much, right? Like, if we start to push this, you're going to hear a lot of crunch. You're going to hear the high end and the bass, especially in music like this when the bass is so strong and the high end is so punchy. You're going to hear a lot of that. Right? So keep it. What you want to do is get it to the point right where it's about to do that. Like, take it too far and then bring it down a bit. And there we go. And that's how you do that, because, again, like, you really need to push this. It's literally like, I've had this issue before. Like, My tracks were at the level they needed to be. Everything inside of the project file was good, and they were still telling me it wasn't powerful enough, it wasn't loud enough. And I was sitting here scratching my head, and then I realized it's like, oh, it's just because, like, those people are more comfortable pushing their limiters harder. Like, a lot of times that really is what it comes down to. And I think there's a big difference between, like, what you might read online, where they try to tell you this very safe, like, clean thing, and then what is actually done in the tracks that you guys are listening to. And really, that issue, like, that disconnect between information is what creates the, like, oh, why aren't my tracks as good, right? It's just because a lot of times the stuff they're telling you to do and the stuff the pros are actually out there doing is a little bit different. So, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I wanted to create just a really good guide to mastering a track of any style to get it as fat and as powerful as you need. Thanks again for all the support. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the best Ableton mastering rack ever. It's got all this and so much more than what I showed you today. It's a really detailed dive that will allow you, just with these 8 knobs, to really take your tracks to the next level. You know, you can really make them sound professional. I promise you, if you're having issues getting your stuff to really, really hit like that and really sound pro, drop this on and start playing with some of the knobs on here, and you're going to see what's possible. You know, a lot of times, it's really all that it takes, and I wanted to create this resource. I wish that this existed back when I was starting, right? Like, I just want to create something that everybody needs. So, link is at the top of the description. I promise you need this mastering rack. Go grab it now. Don't miss out. It's just $5. It really helps support me, and it's going to help support you. This is one thing that could really actually take your tracks to the next level and help you get to where you've been trying to get. So, link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.